Well, this time yesterday, we're of course reflecting on Spurs dropping points against Leicester after dominating the first half so much. Life in the old Fox yet. Jamie Vardy getting all the headlines, of course, after scoring the equaliser. Postecoglou not happy after the game with his strikers. Here's what Ange had to say.
We just lacked a real sort of cutting edge in that front third, made some poor decisions, lacked some composure, and, unfortunately, didn't get the reward our football deserved. Yeah, the overall performance of everyone was okay, but it doesn't mean anything if we don't sort of turn that sort of performance into outcomes. And, we had some similar issues last year, and something we need to, if we're going to sort of get to the next level as a team, bridge a gap with the top sides. It's an area of the game we need to improve.
He must have been so frustrated, the fact that they only got one in that first half.
Yeah, and I think it's a perfect opportunity for him to say, listen, if that's what you're delivering me, I don't want you here. Because the better teams, the best teams, in the scenario that they were in, absolutely battering Leicester. But, it smelt to me that one or two of them were taking, what we'd say in the UK, taking the mickey. It was too easy.
Right.
And it was like, the second, blasé. And I could sense that a little bit with some of the passing and the finishing and the way that they were so sort of chilled about a bad pass.
Who did you feel was guilty of that the most?
I thought Son, Maddison, the lot. The lot of them in the forward department, and to me, I could smell that it was like they just feel that there's no way they can lose this game.
Right,
it's so easy.
It was just arrogant.
Almost bordering on an arrogance of we're outplaying this team so much that this second goal is going to come, rather than when players are getting a little bit chilled on the ball and making bad passes, somebody getting onto them and saying, hey, that is not good enough. That is not good enough. And that game should have been, as you discussed, minimum 3 or 4 at half-time.
Yeah.
Minimum. And it was embarrassing. And so I think that's something that the bigger teams do. The best teams across Europe and the world, when they have you like that, genuinely, they smash you to smithereens. But Tottenham yesterday, and it wasn't all down to, Dominic Solanke didn't finish her, because he was in there, and I think he will be a good player for them. But this tippy-tappy sort of, arrogant, it'll eventually come for his sort of way that I thought they perceived themselves yesterday. That's how it was perceived. I thought that must have made their manager very angry. And also the fact that when they got a bloody nose for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, they panicked.
Yes.
They panicked on top of it. So, wasn't a disaster, but I think an early warning that, these players, if they want to be in this top 4 challenging, they need to have the killer instinct to go and put their foot on top of other players' throats and say, I don't care if you get relegated. I don't care if we beat you by 8 goals, and we're going to show you who's boss. Tottenham did not do that.
It was interesting, Shaq. Like, that first half performance was the best that we saw pretty much from like Manchester City, Arsenal, Liverpool. They all kind of laboured to their win. They were nowhere near their best. That first half from Spurs, they were excellent, apart from obviously getting the ball in the back of the net. And as Craig says, that's the reason you're not going to finish top 4 this season.
I agree. And I thought a lot of Spurs' problems, particularly to the back end of last season, was a lack of experience in how they went about so much of their football. Lack of experience from a squad of players that should know a whole lot better. And I felt the exact same against Leicester yesterday. Now, playing against newly promoted teams this early in the season is never easy. You saw that with Liverpool, you saw that with 10-man Newcastle, because they are coming up, they're playing with confidence, the crowd is certainly behind them, and there's this kind of excitement that kind of the length of a season kind of grinds you down. So this early, newly promoted teams is about experience, is about managing games. And Spurs didn't do that. Spurs dominated, and when they needed to keep calm heads, I thought you saw anything but. And then all of a sudden, they get that right hook from Jamie Vardy, and they really don't know how to respond. And again, it goes, I'll double down on what Ian Dark said yesterday. It's just Spurs being Spursy yet again, in not just winning the game when it was there to be won. And regardless of who you are, regardless of who the opposition is, you have to know, especially on their patch, that they're going to have a spell. And how you manage that spell a lot of times determines the outcome. Spurs simply weren't ready for that. They just were not ready for Leicester to have a spell on their own patch. And for me, that kind of just is a roll on from what we saw for much of last season.
To Craig's point, Frank, have they got players within that starting 11 that will stand up and say, oi, that's enough now. Enough of all this. Let's play football. Let's get goals.
Hopefully for them, they have. I think they have some players with experiences, and they should use their leadership to say something and be angry at everybody and make a meeting and make a briefing, let's say, to make sure that everything works. But you know, it's becoming kind of a habit, and if it's not a habit, it's kind of a statement for Spurs. Over the years, even if it's the first day and they started well the first half, but they didn't finish the game well, but it's becoming like an habit. And again, yeah, a real statement that at Spurs, I feel that the players are very comfortable, that the pressure is not really there, that they're not really at the edge, and whatever happens, they don't get punished for anything. And I don't feel the pressure from the board. I don't really feel the pressure from the fans. I think a club like Spurs should be more challenging the best teams. And if it doesn't happen, it's not really like a problem for anybody. So the players say, okay, we do well, we don't do well, that's okay. And we'll see next year. It shouldn't work like that. I mean, you should finish the game against Leicester. The first half was absolutely fantastic, but you have to finish it. That's what it is. It's how you get big, and you threaten the others. But it's always first. It's like, yeah, it's okay.
He has to find an edge, as Frank said. This manager has to find a way of getting the mindset into these Spurs players that they need to be in the top four, that they need to be at least challenging, that they need to be looking at Werner.
How do you do that? Can you do that with this personnel? For example, you look at Son. Since the Asian Cup, we know how great Son has been since moving to Spurs, but there has been a decline. And we do see it when he doesn't perform at his best level. Spurs suffer inevitably, like any team does when your star isn't at the top level.
And he's not, and his decision-making and his touch and his final ball and all that sort of stuff is down. His numbers are down. Will he get that back? Possibly. But he's not the only one, and I tell you, the other thing is it's not just him, but we talk about making an impact off the bench, and there was quite a few youngsters come on yesterday, and obviously Bentancur had to go off with a real nasty injury. But I tell you another one who, for me, I look at him as a player, international footballer of apparently some repute, who has been around the block. Is somebody going to tell me what the hell Timo Werner does?
Right.
He came on the game again yesterday, and he looked as if he was frightened stiff of the fullback. He never runs in behind anybody. He never gets the cross in. He's happy. I was watching him yesterday going, maybe you played well in Germany. I don't give two stuffs what he did in Germany. He's not in Germany now. He's not at Leipzig and he's happy home, right? Easy street. And for a player of his ilk to come off the bench, to have some impact, and I've seen it before from him, and whenever a ball's played up to him, if a defender gets near to him, he's like a frightened school kid and he taps it off to the side. 5 yards, 5 yards, 5 yards, 5 yards. And he did it again yesterday. And it's just a lack of responsibility. And I look at him as a player that should be coming on and putting the frighteners on defenders as a fast, experienced international footballer. And he came on yesterday and he stood in the right wing, he did absolutely nothing. Somebody tell me a cross he got in the box. Somebody tell me a full-back that he beat. Somebody tell me a run he made in behind. And I'm not just picking on Timo Werner because there are others, but others were youngsters for the most part. Most part. People like Heung-min Son and Timo Werner and others, they're the experienced players in this camp. They need to take the bull by the horn. And when I see one or two of these performances, particularly what Werner gave off the bench yesterday, it almost said to me, was like that. Picked my wages up, got 20 minutes to go. That's what it looked like.
Postecoglou's been talking about recruitment and talking about, for him, how important it is to have good characters in the dressing room. Like one bad apple can ruin a whole dressing room, and I'm sure you've experienced that. But is there a flip side to that, in that you need someone who is going to stand up to a manager or stand up to a dressing room to address these sort of issues? Sure. And maybe he shies away from recruiting those sort of people because he doesn't want that confrontation. And
maybe how much of the recruitment is the managers and other people, I don't know. There is going to be a leadership discussion about Tottenham this season, I feel. A continuation of their sort of slip towards the end of last year, which maybe kind of was expected because it was pretty good for long periods. But I think we're past that. You know, spent big on Solanke. He's a good player. He's physical. He knows the game. He scored 19, I think, for Bournemouth and a poorer side. But I do feel we may have a discussion about leadership and drive and just a hunger to go and be in amongst it. Yeah. Rather than just be amongst the mediocrity. And I don't know if somebody's going to put their hands up. Certainly look at the middle of the park. Bentancur's a good player, but he's tidy. You know, there was no... Papi Sarr played yesterday. They had a couple of other injuries. But...
Frank, like, obviously, when you won the World Cup, you take a look at that team of '98, everyone had good characters, but there's no one who's shying away from a fight or a discussion or putting their opinion ahead of others.
Of course not. I mean, we were all leaders in our own clubs, and we didn't need anybody to tell us what to do. We did it. But let's take a club example. You know, I play for Chelsea, and the club was filled up by stars like Zola, like Vialli, like Gullit, like Petrescu, Marcus. And I can tell you, nobody was shy. And if you were young, you were John Terry, you were Jody Morris, they were coming on, and we asked them to show their talents and don't hide. That's the worst. We were talking about Timo Werner. Yeah, don't hide. For Spurs, I think the guys at the back, Porro, I feel he has a character. Romero has a big character. I'm sure Van de Ven can be an example. We saw Vicario yelling at what is his name? Backwell? I don't remember his younger player. Yeah, sorry. And though there is a possibility to find players who can make sure that the other will move otherwise, and that's very useful. But Ange has to use them to make sure that the mentality will change. But I would have been very upset to be among some players who just try to do the minimum. And I will go. I play with Craig. I would have seen Craig doing like Timo Werner has done yesterday. I would say, Craig, what are you doing? You don't want to play football or what? I know you. I see you at the training ground. I see you capable of doing other things. Show it to us. Don't be shy, because that's useless. We don't need you for that.
I am dead against doing that with a young player. Young lad, I think, making his Premier League debut. I do not understand how that is supposed to better players. Now, saying that, I remember having a conversation with Eric Steele, who is goalkeeper coach at Manchester United, talking about that was exactly how the Manchester United dressing room was. Regardless of who you are, if you don't do what was expected, you would have Roy Keane, Jaap Stam, Peter Schmeichel coming down on you. So you knew you had to step up. That being said, this version of Spurs is a long way from that version of Manchester United. But for me, as I do not agree with that type of remonstration at all. I don't see how it benefits a young player. Now, maybe, again, Vicario goes back to the dressing room and says, listen, I'm sorry. I just lost it because of what was, and I have been there. What was happening up there. Right. And I took it out on you, and I'm sorry for it. But at the moment, I thought it was a poor decision.
But are we being hypocritical here? Because we're saying, look, Spurs need leaders, and we see leadership from one of their players.
You can have leadership in different ways. And also, I'd add to that, I thought the goalkeeper should have caught that header anyway. It was weak, and it was so weak, he padded it out. So maybe I'd have been giving him some. But those sort of remonstrations, I think, are for the public. Because they are very public, you know, throwing your arms around in the direction of a player. That's for everybody else to see. There's only one, and you know I've told you this, there's only one player ever did that to me once, and I almost got 25 years in jail for it after the game, because I nearly strangled him to death. You know what I mean? Because I was so annoyed at somebody throwing their arms up on a regular basis because I didn't play a ball to this particular individual. And so when I got back to the dressing room 25 minutes later when the game finished, I still hadn't calmed down. And one thing led to another, but he never did it again. And so I don't like it. And Shaq's right, those United boys did it to each other and you had to handle it. Maybe we've got Tottenham all wrong here. Maybe we just have. Maybe they're going to show a steel to them that they need. Maybe they're going to be more incisive in the final third and more clinical as the season goes on, and that's going to be good for them. But that was a little bit of a worrying trend yesterday, what I saw from them. And I think as well as they played in the first half, I would have been so angry getting in there being a Spurs player that there was an acceptance that they were only 1-0 up when they had, players that I know would have got angry at so many wasteful chances. Strikers would have got angry. The Hugheses and the Zolas and the Henrik Larssons would have been spitting blood at the wastefulness in the final third. And I didn't see that from Spurs players yesterday. It was almost like, as I said, we'll be all right in the second half because this will just be a continuation. And then all of a sudden, the light switches and you lose a goal and you're under pressure.
Yep.
Tottenham have to solve that, or they'll be what they always are, also runs.
Just confirm, it wasn't Frank.
No, it wasn't Frank.
Throwing his hands up. That's
wasn't
good.
Frank.
Frank, just to tie a bow on the Vicario situation as a centre-back, I imagine you may have had goalkeepers who tried that with you. What did you make of it?
I think we'll have a fight at the end of the game in the dressing room because you want to put a layer on top of your save. You don't argue with me. It's like showing off, especially on the young guy who just signed for the club and he's not full of confidence. So you did well. Yeah, you made a save. Craig said, yeah, you could have kept the ball, but at the end of the day, you just go like that. Yeah, okay, it's good, man. I'm here. Don't worry. But you want to show off to the fans. You say, I saved it, but on top of it, I'm going to hammer him. You're going to see, I'm the big man. Now, you're not the big man, Mikayo. You made so many mistakes last season. Take it easy.
But to that point, I've often made the point that if I were to shout and remonstrate with a player, it would be that kind of situation where the ball didn't find its way to the back of the net. The bigger issue for me is when the goal scores, you already know, fans are already down on you, no goalkeeper needs to be remonstrated. And then it's when I make it say, when it doesn't result in a goal, I think that's when you have the stronger word here. So there is so much from a goalkeeping perspective about this that, again, I probably wouldn't have, but I tempted to sympathise with.
Big season for Postecoglou, isn't it?
Well, it is. He was up there, and
No, but I think
you love him.
Oh, well, steady on.
No, sorry, it's not golf. It's not the golf top.
I honestly think, apart from one or two Muppets that tune in and say, there's a love-in with Postecoglou. No, there's not. They duly got, I think, a lot of praise last year for completely switching the style of a rancid, terrible team to watch, and they completely changed. And I think the plaudits were due. But that ship is sailed now, isn't it?
Yeah. And so only play with house money for so long.
And so it's the big boys' rules in the Premier League, and they've spent money. They have a good squad, and it's his responsibility now, second season, to go and push on. And that's going to put way more pressure on him than he had last year. Last year it was a bit of a free hit. This year, no chance.
Let's just